Hey, I am Wakefield. This is the Greater Futures podcast. The Greater Futures is meant to get into the heads and hearts of people in their 20s and teens, just to figure out how they make their choices and then how we can do everything to give them the information to make the best decisions possible, living full lives, always looking forward to a brighter future. So today, having with us a longtime friend and a new friend for me, former tennis player when I was a tennis coach, Evan Hefty, and then Corbin, his good friend, Corbin Bowen. You guys have ever been interviewed before in this setting?
Not in a formal manner like this.
Yeah, because it's so formal.
Right.
Very tight.
Yeah.
And so really appreciate you coming on. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the wheels turn within you, and more probably importantly, like how your heart fires and what brings you to life. So I would love for you first, Evan, we'll start with you. Tell us, that elevator speech, if you have 30 seconds, like this is who you are. Like tell us a little about yourself and how you ended up here.
All right. I'm Evan Hefty. I played tennis with Wakefield in high school.
Still play tennis?
No.
Yeah.
I do not still play tennis.
Pickleball now.
We now play pickleball.
That's what you do when you become an old man.
Yeah.
Yes. And I am officially rated at pickleball. Anyways, I am a college student at North Central Community College, and I'm doing the medical lab scientist program there. And I have about 10 months left of that. And then I'll be on to more schooling or no schooling after that. And yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and thanks Wakefield for having us on here. But I'm Corbin Bowen, and I knew Evan through middle school and in high school. I did not play tennis. I played golf, the far superior sport, and
with probably a better coach over there too.
Oh, Melvin, we love Melvin. Yeah. Yeah, and currently I'm at North Central Missouri College as well. I'm studying business, trying to get my degree in business management, and it's only a 2-year college, so I'll be done after next semester. And then I'll head on over to Missouri Western, actually, to get the rest of my bachelor's degree.
Oh, great. So one of the points of interviewing you guys and just throwing questions at you, like I said, is to get a feel for why do you do what you do? And in that, there's no wrong reasons. Like I think everyone, it's helped me just assume everyone's doing the best they can with kind of the stimuli that's in front of them, with the experiences that are in front of them. So I would love to know, right now, you both, like school's a big part of your life, going, post high school, getting some education. But what outside of school are the things that you've been enjoying the most, you enjoy the most now, or you look forward to enjoying in the future? Another way to put it, like, what are some things that make you guys come to life, or when you felt the most alive?
I'll start first. I would say number one thing that makes me feel most alive is getting things done and going to church, growing in my faith, and just doing things and pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And I feel like I'm either growing in that or I'm dying in that, And I think that for me, just doing all of the things in my daily life, like either going to the gym or studying or reading up on whatever, that's really important for me.
I think the aspect of my life currently where I feel the most alive in is probably like outside of work and school and even church. Like the most secular part of my world that I feel alive is probably the gym, honestly. I've found a big enjoyment in going to the gym. I didn't really ever go to the gym before getting out of high school, but a buddy of mine at Missouri Western was sitting next to me one day, and he's like, hey, do you lift? And I was like, not really, but I'd like to start. And so we've been going every day since then. I mean, we literally lifted on Christmas and Thanksgiving. I mean, it has been such a big part of my life. And
so how long ago was that?
That was right at the end of November. And believe it or not, I don't look it, but I've gained 20 pounds since then. So, and it's been a big deal for me. And if I don't lift throughout my day, I feel empty. So I have one day where I don't lift, and that's Sunday. So
What would it feel like to live in a world where you take those things you just mentioned, like Evan, you take, and you both had similar answers, but let's emphasize where you're saying like really to grow spiritually, to learn, and then using that to like get things done. What does it look like if you're told, like, yeah, you do not get to have any more spiritual conversations or read any more spiritual books? Like, is that a life that you could still find enjoyment or meaning in?
No. I mean, I think meaning comes from spiritual things. The reasons why people do things are all spiritual. Even if it's a good thing or a bad thing, there's always a reason behind it, and that's all spiritual, I think.
Good. Do you think that you are unique in that desire, or is this common amongst other 19-year-olds?
I think everyone, no matter what age they are, is on a journey for some sort of love. Whether, I mean, they have different ways of getting it, but I think everyone's on that same journey.
The feeling to grow spiritually, is there something beneath that? Like, because you just said, like, brought in love to it. Like, okay, do you love the spiritual piece of you that comes to life by going to church or reading spiritual texts? I'm assuming it's the Bible for you. So does that only have meaning because there's a love underneath of it and you feel loved? Like, is that the feeling that's underneath, like, oh, growing spiritually and connecting spiritually? What does that feel like to you, or why is it important?
I feel like if you forget to go down that path and grow a little bit every day, a little bit, you can forget. You know, if you're not growing there, you forget, and you stop feeling that belongingness to the world.
Have you ever gone through seasons when you've like, oh, I love this, but you go through seasons maybe you don't focus on it as much, or you get a little disconnected?
Yeah, especially in high school.
Right.
It was a completely different world, and no one was going down that path that I knew. I mean, so I was completely shut off from that for a long time. But after graduating, going to college, and doing things that I wanted to do, I realized that that's really important.
Anything to comment on that, of what he's saying?
I would kind of piggyback off of his last statement there, where he was saying how nobody in high school lived kind of the lifestyle that he's currently living now, and we've had many conversations about that even, and the people we were surrounded by and the things that everyone was doing was nothing, spiritual, nothing glorifying to God. And I've been a Christian my whole life, and grew up in church, and even I strayed away from doing things that God would have me to do in high school, and that lifestyle, that everyone else was living was very enticing to me, and so it was easy to kind of piggyback off of that life. And to Evan's point, nobody really lived that way, and so, that's where I would add to his statement.
So I might come back to that in a little bit, but I did want to come on that other angle, Corbin. You were talking specifically about, man, I felt a lot of life by going to the gym. I'm assuming the gym's had a lot of pain at times for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the same kind of similar question I threw at Evan related to growing spiritually, maturing spiritually. What if I told you, like, no more gym, you're not allowed to go there anymore? How would that change things for you?
Well, that would definitely stink. I've really, that's kind of my way of escaping, everything. I go to work for 8 hours in the day. I work at Hy-Vee, so I'm a store manager there, and deal with a lot of interesting things throughout the day, and either before the work day or after the work day, depending on if I open or close, I always try to go to the gym, and that's just kind of my escape. Like, that's just my normally hour and a half to 2 hours of just like turning my brain off, and I don't listen to, I don't have to listen to anybody talk or anything. It's just, and I feel like if I didn't have that in my day, I would just, I would need that because it's been such a mental escape for me to just kind of turn off everything, and and I'm able to kind of, it's not only am I physically growing, I feel like I'm mentally kind of healing too by just turning everything off and not listening to the outside problems and everything. So
you guys have expressed values of yours already just in a short amount of time. We talked about education, and there's a reason that's valuable to you right now. Connecting spiritually via church and growing that way, staying healthy and fit. You both look like that is a value of yours, as well as back it up and saying, yeah, we're paying attention to that. Anything else? Those are probably the primary ones because they've come out early. However, what else to you are things that like, yes, I'm paying close attention to this in my life, whether experiences, people, or material items?
So one thing that I pay close attention to is the stock market, actually. And right now, if you've noticed how the stocks are looking, we're kind of in a recession right now. And my stock portfolio has definitely...
That's just yours. Mine's doing great. No,
Yeah, right, yeah. I need to get whatever you've got, yeah. But no, and even my my index funds and all that have dropped. I mean, I don't have a huge amount in it, but it's big enough that I've noticed like, oh wow, this has definitely gone down. And without getting political, I think that the election will be a big proponent of how that changes in the future. Some candidates who are pro-crypto, and there's some that are not. But obviously, Donald Trump has openly expressed his opinion on crypto, and he is pro-crypto. Mm-hmm. And J.D. Vance, he is an investor in Bitcoin. And I believe Donald Trump is too. I actually saw something the other day where he bought hamburgers for the entire restaurant in New York in Bitcoin. So it's pretty cool. And as a newly Bitcoin investor, that's really neat to see.
And this will be your first presidential election you get to vote in for you guys, won't it?
Yep. Just turned 18 last year, so this will be the first one I can participate in. But like I said, I don't know how the election will go. I do think that if the election goes in favor of the Republicans, then my stock portfolio, my crypto will go up.
So that you were listening to that when we're talking about value. So you are valuing your resources, and a lot of your resources right now find their form in like the financial assets of cryptocurrencies that you've put into.
I do all my investments on my stock portfolio through Fidelity. That's something my dad got started for me whenever I was pretty young. It was a custodial account, and then he transferred it over to me, and which for whatever reason was a pain in the butt to get transferred over. But for the last 10 years of my life, my dad's like, oh yeah, I've been kind of putting this into the, this index fund, or I've been putting some of this into this single stock, or, whatnot. And so it's interesting to see, like, now I can look at it and be like, oh, that's what he was doing there, So it's kind of cool.
So any other resources, experiencing people that you end up thinking about a lot in a typical week?
Just getting those experiences and hanging out with friends, especially whenever you're an online student like me. Making the effort and setting those plans takes a lot of effort, and not everyone's going to be free a week from now, to just hang out, on a whim. So
spending time with friends, of which this guy is one, right? Why do you think you two have a friendship? Like, what is it about? You're like, I feel really comfortable with him.
I'll start. I would say that we kind of have this weird connection where we just feel like we're the same person sometimes and think the same way. Yeah. Which,
we do on many things. We have very similar interests. I remember in middle school, whenever we were in 8th grade, we were talking about the new Star Wars that was coming out. I don't remember. I think it was it the Last Skywalker or something? And we got to talking about that, and then I think we went and saw that together, and then that's where we became friends because I didn't move to Savannah actually until middle school. So I was not from here, and I really didn't know anybody from here, and I went to St. Joe Christian, and so it was a I wouldn't say a huge change, but it was definitely a change because I didn't know anybody. But St. Joe Christian wasn't a big school, and Savannah's not necessarily a huge school either. So, yeah, whenever I moved up here, I met Evan, and we definitely had similar interests. We both liked video games, and we both liked Star Wars and that kind of thing. So it was kind of cool.
And so have you two ever, as much as you're like, yeah, we share a lot of the way we see the world and think in common, like have you ever vehemently disagreed or even mildly disagreed with one another? Or here's another way to put it, have either of you changed each other's thinking related to
yeah.
anything?
I would say that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
I would say we definitely influence each other's thinking and maybe even kind of steer each other in a direction that maybe we would feel I would go.
Time with friends, hanging out with friends, does it matter what you're doing, or is it just the act of being together, time together?
Oh, I'd say it's essential to just have that time and find a way to spend it with each other. I feel like if you don't have that time with at least somebody that you like being around with, it's hard to live other parts of your life well.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily need any other element to it, of just time, or do you guys try to design certain experiences when you?
Well, we both like movies. We're both big movie nerds, so sometimes we'll meet up and watch something, and then we'll talk about it a lot.
It depends on the activity. If we're playing pickleball, it used to be whenever Evan first started getting into pickleball, we could play together. Now it normally ends in me getting very frustrated because he's quite significantly better than me. So it does depend on the activity, I guess, to some extent. But yeah, we both, like you said, enjoy watching movies. He always finds a new movie that he'll show me, and I try to find something new to show him too. But yeah, that's something that we share a very similar interest in. So.
All right. So as much as I'll just keep honing in on the valuable things, and you have a girlfriend. Mm-hmm. You currently are single.
Yes. Sorry.
He's not going to answer that.
Yeah. Yes, I am very
Did you
single.
say something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not after this post. And
right.
Swap picked up in no time.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So, and then I know you have that your mom and dad just, really big fan of everything you do and have a good relationship. I know I would say you and your dad have a quality friendship too. Family, it seems like you mentioned your dad already.
Yep.
So that's probably a value you'd both recognize.
No, he's been a big figure in my life, and I appreciate my dad a lot.
Would you call politics a value? Because I feel like a lot more young people are saying that is a value of mine.
Yeah.
This is not. It's not meant to be a political podcast, but what I think when people say keep politics out of it, what they also suggest in keep your values out of it.
Sure.
And so that gets to me to be a little difficult when you say, how am I gonna, and when we take it to personal finance and money, even here in a bit, how am I gonna spend this dollar? Well, your values influence that. Your value ends up shaping your own personal policies, which is the root of politics,
Yes.
And then we have certain freedoms to do some things and not to do others. So I don't know, would you say politics is a value of yours or even your peers?
I would say it gets confused a lot, at least for me, when someone asks me about politics, because they'll start with something like, how do you feel about this pipeline? Or how do you feel about this policy? And it will transition to, what's your code of being as a person? And
one answer to figure out how you view the world.
My code ethics is probably not going to change that much. That's very stable.
Yeah.
And
you have your roots.
So when I think of politics, I think of, let's talk about the things that they're actually doing. Not talk about do I think this is right or wrong? Because I think there's a clear answer already.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you have that ethical value almost of something that you believe. With politics being a value of mine, I think that ethics.
So you would say first agree, like, it is a value.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it kind of falls under the ethical guidelines of what you believe to be ethical.
When you consider the headlines that are like thrown at you via social media or other forms of media that you soak in, you're both on social media.
Yeah.
Not me.
Not you. Where do you get your news from, or what's happening
Right now?
Yeah.
Other people. I don't have anything on my phone right now.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. That's big, man. That's awesome.
No,
yeah.
well, it's good and it's bad. I would say it's bad in the way that I've been off social media before the whole Israel thing has been going on. I don't know. I'm not informed on any of that, So I think it's sometimes kind of oblivious to just not be up to date with current events, and that's a part I need to work on. But another part of me just wants to avoid all the temptation of the dopamine hacks of that kind of stuff. And so far, that's been working well for me actually staying focused on things.
So it's not that you're not focused on things, but you are feeling that the media, in this case social media, but you said it's not even regular or traditional media, is distracting. It's putting things, but those are more distractions instead of the other things you want to focus on.
Yeah. I would love just a totally objective, this happened today at this time in this place, but that's not what happens. It has to be a catchy headline or else the ratings will not do well. So it's just a clickbait title that you have to click on to see what's happening in the world. I just appreciate real news from
So what would you
good
tell
sources.
other 19, 21, 17-year-olds that are no, it'd be impossible to actually do what you just described?
Very important to know why you would want to stay off of it, and your reasons for it, and know that anytime you go against that and you get onto social media, you're basically going against yourself, and just knowing that you're doing what you want to do and that you're in control. Because every single time you say you're going to do something, you don't do it, it just decreases your control in the situation.
Do you think it's worth it for others that will listen to this to consider?
Oh, I would think it's
Getting rid
100%
of
totally
their
worth
connection.
it if you really want to ground yourself and remind yourself of what it's like to just be a human being.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to just, like what Corbin was saying with the gym, just let go and say, I'm not always going to be in control of everything, but the one thing I'm going to be in control of is the stuff that's not good for me. And just saying, I'm just going to distance myself from that and be a human for a little bit.
Exactly.
And then catch up on all the events, because it's important to know and make good choices and vote well, and I think it's important.
I do social media and everything. I have Instagram and I have Snapchat and Facebook. I'll watch some YouTube here and there, but I deleted TikTok 2 years ago, and I just found myself so drenched in TikTok during COVID. It was bad. It was horrible, really. And so you hear the term brain rot on TikTok or whatever, and Instagram, and that's a real thing. Those TikToks are just brain rotting. You get so sucked into it, and you don't even realize, wow, 30 minutes was just wasted. I'm never getting those 30 minutes back. And so I literally just told myself I'm deleting TikTok, and I did, and it was tough, but I got past that, and now I don't regret it at all. I'm very happy I did that. But to Evan's point, sometimes you don't get caught up on maybe the most current, things in the world. But obviously there's other ways to find news. I mean, you know, whenever I go to the gym, I go to the Y, so they have the news up on the screen, you know. So there are other ways to get your media. It's just, you know, how bad do you actually want to know what's current? Because you can still obtain that without getting on social media. Social media is only something that's been around for, you know, the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, and wondering of all the different media that we're fed, and including advertisements, of how many of those items that pop in front of our senses actually do have like a visceral impact or even a spiritual impact on us, when a lot of it's distracting. And it was to your point earlier, Evan, that you made something about how show me the people who are actually doing something, or the real things. And there is a scripture that Jesus said where he said, which one was faithful? The one who said he was going to go and do that but didn't end up going, or the one who didn't say it but ended up going? And you know, and I forget the context, but helping a friend or actually getting something done. And they said, well, the guy who didn't use the words but actually just went and actually did what he was commanded to do.
Like Jonah, like going to Nineveh.
So Christ has a parable, and I think he puts that to the Pharisees, and said, the talk, you know, of our times isn't nearly as important as the substance of, you know, actual things that. And I think that's an important distinction too. It's like, we do care.
It's like, Jesus, take the wheel, you know? I mean, but no, honestly, you just let him take control, and he has the power to do whatever may need to be.
Evan, you said something earlier about how most of your primary ethics, those are pretty set. Like, they're not likely to change a lot, particularly once you get, I'd say, past your mid-20s. You know, you guys might be in a time where they're evolving some, but the core is probably not going to change a lot from what you were raised with. So I'd ask you both to talk about that in relation to how you view the world, how you are spending your resources. Where did that worldview come from? And that could be anywhere, and I'd like you to be as honest as possible. Where do you think that, how was that shaped? Was it purely genetic? Was it more just your nature, or has it been nurtured into you? And if so, what were those sources?
I would say between nature and nurture, there's, as far as money goes, for me, I think you watch your parents kind of do what they do, and then you have a choice, which is you can either say, I'm going to do the same thing, or you're like, I don't want to be like them. And I think even though you're raised in a certain environment, everyone makes the same choices. So I wouldn't say, like, just because someone's raised in a home where they have a lot of money that they're going to have good financial decisions. I think sometimes it can be the opposite, because they don't see how things usually play out that way. I think that most people, the way they spend money when they're young is the same when they spend money when they're older. And people who spend, you know, money on, I guess, let's say mainly like entertainment and comfort early on in life will likely do the same thing later on, just depending on where their money situation has changed. Like, they'll have more money, but it'll be partitioned the same way. For me, I would say I've had a lot of a shift recently on what I think of where my money goes and why my money's going to certain places, because I have realized that spiritually, I don't want that to be my money, because I'm saying this money's not mine. This is God's money, and He's going to put that wherever He needs it to go. And that's just been a way. If you're looking for a way to de-stress your money situation, is let God take control of your money and say, this is yours, and I'll be responsible, like the parable of the 3 men in Matthew 25. I'll be responsible with it and do it the way I think it's supposed to be done, but just doing it in a way that meets that code of ethics, I would say, is what I've been transitioning to recently.
The Bible also talks about 10% of your earnings go back to God, so that's your tithe. And I think fitting that into your investments, you know, throughout the, you know, week or whatever, I think that should obviously have a place in there as a Christian. So that's one thing that has kind of shaped the way that I spend my money. I think another thing, like Evan was saying, is your parents. What they've taught you. You grow up with your parents, you see how they spend their money, and the kind of habits they have. I think that'll transition to you a lot. But also to Evan's point, they don't often end up like their parents, the kids. And if your parents were unwise with their money, I think that it would be very wise for you to take a different path, obviously, and try to take as much knowledge in about investing your money and how you can grow that money, that you earn wherever that may be with whatever job you have, how you can grow that into something, bigger, obviously. But for me personally, just looking at how my parents, like my dad specifically, has spent his money has been a big factor in how I spend mine. Also, social media has been a big influence. Kind of the big trends or whatever. Obviously, crypto is very new, so that would be probably considered trendy. Although it is trendy, it has also been proven to be a very big return on your investment in many cases. And so, obviously, I saw that and I've jumped on that. That's been a big influence in how I spend. And then, a lot of my friends in high school were big into sports betting, and there was this app we would use specifically called Fliff, and
not me.
Yeah,
I didn't partake in any of that.
Not Evan, by the way. Yeah, he was smart, and it is something that I've since given up after losing some money. But there were big wins, and you felt you have that kind of high from the win. Like there was the most recent win that I had, and I stopped very shortly after this win, was the Ryan Garcia fight, and I had a big payout. It was a $15 wager, and the payout was like $120 or something. And but then I turned around and basically lost all that in the NBA Finals. So yeah, that. But to my point, what influenced me to do that, which was wrong, obviously being a Christian and everything, you're not supposed to gamble. But what influenced me to do that was my peers. And obviously the big media sites like ESPN and all them, they will influence you and kind of shove it down your throat and trying to get you to bet. Because they make a lot of money on that. Just like the old saying, the house always wins. So, at the casino. So that's a big factor, though, social media and everything.
What felt better, the wins of the Ryan Garcia fight compared to not felt better. What feeling was stronger? The wins of the Garcia fight versus the loss of the finals?
Oh, for sure, the loss.
Because was a more powerful feeling.
Yes,
yeah.
Because you're like, wow, I had it right there. I could have cashed out, but I wanted more. I wanted that. I saw the opportunity, and, I saw the high risk, or I saw the high reward, but I was kind of looking past the high risk, And that's something that comes with high reward is high risk. And they always say, whenever you're younger is the time to make the more high risk, choices. But I think that gambling is a rigged game. I think it's something that's really all risk and in many cases almost no reward. Mm-hmm. So.
And does dopamine play into that? As a resident dopamine expert? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Could you see that when you were in high school and when you knew? I mean, were you aware?
I was locked in just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I just think that dopamine is such a addictive thing. Mm-hmm. But I would say the thing that I don't know if many people talk about is what happens to your super ego whenever you're in social media and you're locked in there and you're thinking about all of these issues that are popping up on your feed, and you're changing the way you think about things and the way you view yourself. And that's going to be your expectations for how you're going to live the next day. And setting those expectations in a world that doesn't exist, I think is just, I think that's super harmful.
Yeah. And so a world that doesn't exist, so people are really basing their feelings in something that's fake, or at least, would you say it's, when you say it doesn't exist and someone's like caught up in it though, it seems real to them.
I mean, like, I said, it goes as far as just looking things up online. You look up, like, why is alcohol bad? You'll be like, oh, it makes you depressed, or it does this or this. You look in the textbooks I'm reading at school, it says 50 different cancers. It says this is what happens to your liver, and there's so much out there, I think, that's just, it's warped and it's not real.
Right. And then the media, the big media, you see a Budweiser commercial and they're all having a great time, but they don't tell you at the end that, yeah, you could get cancer in the liver from this or whatever. So yeah, I think that a lot of it is very warped.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, you two, alcohol's not been such a temptation.
Nope.
It was at one point in life, but I've since, stopped. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And then Evan, come back to you, because you said, well, right now, like, my money decisions are just largely shaped by the reality that I believe God is real and he cares about how I steward the resources that are passing through my life.
Yeah. I mean, I think also another way to look at it is that if I'm not using my money wisely, then I don't deserve any more money. Like, if I'm not using it for my purpose, then that money is wasted. And you could take this out of all spiritual context and just say, if I'm not using the money the way I plan to, then that was a bad plan. And I think that principle applies to, like, everything. I think everyone makes plans, good or bad, and it's worth it to make good plans.
Yeah, and so I have the benefit though with you, because we went on some tennis trips, and you sat in the front seat while we're driving home, and I do recall specifically ambition to, like, not so much use God's resources. The ambition seemed to, like, no, my idea is to get a lot of resources. Like, I think I see plenty of opportunity to get a lot of money and be very wealthy. And so it does seem that there's been a shift in perspective. And so I think that's interesting, where somebody might watch this, or even you guys thinking, well, I have seen a shift in perspective over time, like just what you described about even gambling. And like, okay, is that shift complete? Do you guys feel like it's still happening? What do you expect for yourself? And then what would you tell somebody who's like, man, I'm listening to this story, and anyone's listening, they're not unfortunately thinking about any of us. They're thinking about themselves, just as we would.
Yeah, right.
And so they're trying to figure out themselves by listening to how your two's perspective has shifted and the way you manage your resources. So I suppose the question is, are you thankful that you've seen these shifts? Are you expecting it to shift more? And what are the drivers of how you're spending your resources right now? And that does include money decisions.
So I've noticed that whenever I put money into a spiritual context, anything that I gain is, like, not lost when it comes to knowledge on money and knowledge on my purpose with money. None of that is ever lost or changed. Whenever I try to put my own spin on things and decide that I want to try to twist things my way, it doesn't work out. And that's when things get real and you lose a lot. So
yeah. So how about you, Corbin, on, like, the shifts that you've said, oh yeah, my perspective is been changed. Do you think it's still being shaped? Do you expect it to look much different than it does right now? And what is driving that?
That's a really good question, actually. So my position obviously changed on the sports gambling.
That as an example.
Right. and that was for the best. That was one of those things where you kind of have to fail in order to succeed. I had to see it for myself because I only saw the reward aspect of it. I didn't see. I mean, I knew it was a possibility to lose, correct, but I didn't know. Like I didn't want to believe that until I actually had it happen to myself, and I think that is what drove my mindset to change with that. Now, you asked me, do I think that I'll have other perspectives change, or do I think that that'll continue to change? I hope that it doesn't continue to change and go back to my former ways with the game late, but I don't. That won't happen. But other perspectives, such as maybe crypto or something, I could see that changing in the future, just because of how new and really kind of volatile that whole world is. That's something that has only been, I mean, Bitcoin was started in 2008, I believe. It was right after the stock market crash of '07. And it was started as kind of a form of an alternative currency than the American currency. And
How old were you in '08, by the way?
in '08, I was 3 years old. So, yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Right. I didn't have much opportunity to invest at that age.
I know you don't understand this, but can I take these blocks to tell you about
Right.
blockchain? Like, I would love to.
I would have loved somebody to do that. Oh, man. But, and obviously it has evolved so much further from there. I mean, obviously all the big the full coins have been mined. And so if you were to mine rather than invest, you couldn't mine a full coin. So that's one way that Bitcoin has changed. But let's get back to the original question here. I'm sorry, of would my perspective change? And obviously, since it is such a relatively new thing on the grand scale, it could change depending on like how it does. The election will be a big proponent of that. If it goes down after the election, I could see my perspective changing on that, and ultimately maybe even pulling out completely. But I would like to think I would still have some invested in.
Regarding
yeah.
your resources, though, one thing you two haven't talked about as much is we've talked about money, but I would say neither of you are rich in money, not because I know what your balance sheets look like, your net worth, but just assuming like, there'll be a day in your future where you probably have work of some kind and you are paid a lot more than a 19-year-old who's in college is. But I would consider you both rich in time and opportunity, and energy, just because your energy is not spoken for as much as, say, a 38-year-old's might be spoken for, and that you get to choose here. You've come out of like the dependence of living at home, which you both did, and now like pretty independent for the most part, get to choose how to spend that time and where you're going. So do you see yourself or consider yourself as rich that way, or like, no, that has no connection to the money I have or don't have? Do you view that as like, yeah, I'm loaded, or not so much?
I'll start on that. So, I feel like I do have a lot of energy, more so than maybe like a 40-year-old or someone of an older age. Now, do I have more time necessarily? I don't know if I would necessarily say that, because I work 32 hours a week at Hy-Vee, and
You're a manager there.
Yep,
right?
yep. And I'm doing online schooling in the process of doing that. So really, if I'm not at school or if I'm not at work, I beg your pardon, I'm doing homework at home. I do everything online. It is very tough throughout the week sometimes to maybe find time to do both. And obviously, I've mentioned the gym is a big part of my life, so I try to get a 1 to 2 hour period throughout each day to go to the gym. And it is very difficult to find time to really do kind of anything outside of that.
So you and Evan, it'll come back around to you too. We all of us have 168 hours a week, I think. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
How much do you think you sleep on average?
Oh gosh.
10 hours a day.
Do you track that?
No, I usually go to sleep though around 10 or 11. I wake up at like 8 usually.
Nice.
So
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, that's just a new change for me. But yeah.
Or is it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, new as in like last, I don't know, 6 months.
Okay. How about you, Corbin?
I wish I could share that. I yearn to get to that point. But right now, my sleep schedule is very, very awful. So working at a grocery store, obviously my hours differentiate throughout the week. So like one day I'll be opening, and that's 6 to 2:30. And other days I'll be closing, which is 2:30 to 10:30. And normally 10:30 turns into 11:30 midnight. And if I get home at midnight and then open the next day, we're talking 4 hours of sleep maybe. And that has affected my sleep schedule a lot. So do I get 8 hours of sleep each day? No, maybe in 2 days. But that is something that I wish was different in my schedule, was my sleep.
Do you, again, I would love to talk more even about that, or like connecting it. Like, do you think that's a personal finance decision? I would say yes, but so we started 168 hours a week. We got about 70 hours on average of sleep for you, about half that for you. Yeah. So then like your other hours, the waking hours we'll call them, like, do you have to go to school? Do you have to work at Hy-Vee? Do you have to, like, is there anything you two have to do?
Oh, I mean, that's a big thing for me, since I'm in a competency-based program, not like an assignments all the time. It's about competency.
Describe what that means for someone who may not
So basically,
understand.
I spend all week. This week was learning about white blood cell disorders, and I'm not being given assignments on that. I'm just in the book, nose deep, looking at all this stuff, and then I'm going to take a test on that in 3 weeks, you know? And that's a big subject for me, is like, do I want to spend 5 hours on this, or do I want to just go to the gym, hang out with some friends, and then look at it before the test, you know? And
Which, I mean, there you even jumped ahead a level, because you say, I have to do this because you enrolled, and that's an NCMC program that you're talking about there. Yeah. So it's like, do you have to be at NCMC?
Oh, okay.
Even at that level.
Yeah.
But you both are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said, yeah, education's worth it.
Yeah, I think it's important for me to have something like that to do. And
Just for education's sake, or is it a building block?
Oh, I mean, for me, in daily life, I think it would be important to have something like that I've had committed time to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Without going too into depth on why I'm specifically at NCMC, I can speak for me and Evan both. I think here we're both there specifically because of the A+ scholarship, and it's free, which is, if you haven't done that, a very smart thing to do.
When you say free, you paid for by certain requirements you did in high school.
Yes,
mixed
correct.
with the state saying, if you do those requirements,
You
we
get
got
to
you.
attend
We will
here.
pay for
We
you.
pay
Exactly.
for it for 50 hours of in school
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So free for us.
Right. Now, there were 50 hours of me tutoring kids at the school here in town, the elementary school. And then there were a certain requirement for your GPA that had to be met. And they don't pay for books. That's a good $600-700. It was actually $700 a semester out of my pocket. That, and for a guy that makes a little bit more than minimum wage, that's a big chunk.
You felt it.
Yeah, you feel that. You feel that.
I interrupted, but you said we are doing, we've enrolled at NCMC. It was paid for, right? So we didn't have to come out of pocket for most of those expenses.
Yeah.
But NCMC is not the end goal.
No.
Right.
No.
So it is a building block.
Yes.
For both of you.
Well, for my path, it's the program I'm in has 100% job placement. So it's just rolling over straight into it.
So it's a building block to a job.
Yeah.
That's a particular type of job for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what that is right now?
Yep.
What is it?
Well, I'm going to work in a lab. I
Yeah.
start clinicals this fall.
Wow.
So I'll be working in the lab, and then I'll just start actually working in the
And
lab.
is that job the end goal for you?
Well, there's more to add on to it, and there's a ton of directions you can go. And
So-
no matter how much schooling I want to do, I know that's a direction I want to go into, and I know that I can have a job the whole way.
Yep, good.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Not a lot of people can go right out of high school, right into college, and then go right out of college into a lab. You know, that's very neat. So,
And then one day you'll be dead.
right, yeah. Ultimately, you will be in the grave. Yeah.
And then you had described before we hit record, like, hey, now this is the building block to get general education requirements. At that point, I'm going to plan to transfer or enroll at a 4-year university.
Yeah.
And finish a business degree.
Yep. Business management and focusing on supply chain management. And what that would do for me personally is where I'm at, Hy-Vee, I could move up the ladder and I could even move into a more corporate setting someday. We're based out of Iowa. I could move, up there and make.
That's the dream.
Yeah, right. Iowa. That's the American dream. You can make good money doing that, though.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think that is just as you guys, even in some of the questions, and I'm thinking like up here, and naturally, like, okay, you start like putting together at a lower level, but understanding like, man, this is all of something much bigger. And then as 3 guys who share an eternal perspective and a Christian faith, we know it's like all of this is going to pass away real quick. Everything we're talking about, even, and to say like, what's actually going on here, which then I would argue then it helps make like some of the smaller choices of which school, why, which program, which job, which avenue after that job. Do I get married? Do we have family? To me, those decisions get a lot clearer when you got, which you two, I'd say, man, doing fantastic. Have that biggest view you can. But in the moment, like, yeah, you got to be in the weeds sometimes too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, when you think about the future, and it is kind of one of the taglines we've been using, like, hey, tomorrow is bright, tomorrow's better, best is yet to come. Like, do you get excited? Are you fearful? Because there's a lot of bad headlines, and the side you might not want to win in November very well could win, So are you guys fearful of the future, optimistic, excited?
I would say I have a lot of things to look forward to. I would say the biggest proponent of my stress is grades. A C in my class is an 82. So I have to keep
Who
that.
said that? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
wow.
I have to keep that
wow.
up. And I can't fall below that either. So that's where my stress comes from. And I don't have time to look at headlines, but that's where my stress comes from.
Yeah, no, that's very real. I mean, having the time to look at the headlines only adds that much more stress onto the preconceived stress from your grades and everything else. So I would agree with that, though, that a lot of my stress comes from school and meeting that requirement to uphold my scholarship. Obviously, if I lose that, then I'm paying out of pocket, which is just that much more expense coming out of my account. And that's, at my age, not something that I want to fork over. But
You could translate that into how many more hours at Hy-Vee am I going to have to give?
Yep.
When you said I don't have much time even right now.
Exactly. Time is money, really. I mean, it's a very common phrase, but it's very true. So spending your time wisely will ultimately, make your investments and your money grow. I do believe that. So.
Yeah. So I asked if you guys were optimistic or afraid of the future, and you both answered with stress. So is that when you think of the future, do you think of stress, even if it's not on the headline level, but even like, I got to get this grade, because if I don't get the grade, I don't get the job. If I don't get the job, I don't.
Honestly, that's just one aspect of the future, or really that's kind of the present. Looking at my grades, and but how it will affect my future. Obviously that's where Evan's going there. If my grades now are bad, I won't get the scholarship, and that could affect my plan for the future. But optimistically, looking at the future, if everything does go to plan, then I could see myself making decent money, and I'm excited for that. I really am. Obviously, there's more to life than just money, and being a Christian, there's more than just this life. But looking at it from a worldly view, if my money is invested correctly, and I could live comfortably in the future, and I'm optimistic about that.
Great. What about you, Evan? Is there just fear and stress ahead of you, or do you see something worth looking forward to?
The fear and stress are necessary to validate the future. And without that stress or fear, do you have a good plan? Is it a plan that you were made to do? And why do you want to push yourself to get there? And I have a ton of plans for the future, but the stress is right now. The future is yet to come.
Yeah, that's very real. Yeah,
That's good. I noticed through a lot of what you two have said, there has been moments that you've said, like pointed to as good moments, but they did involve stress, distress, pressure, from just what we talked about when you lost, money. Just that. And even in working out, it's like the muscles don't grow unless you break them.
Yep.
And just knowing that it seems like a type of world that was created that we were meant to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. Yep.
And it seems to be like, man, to have that feeling when I was younger, even though now, like, man, it feels incredible to say, I'm not going to be afraid. I know there's discomfort ahead of me. I know there's stress or pain or disappointment, but
it's truly, like you said, the uncomfortable moments that you thrive in life. It's whenever you're uncomfortable in the gym that you thrive the most. It's the big risks you take, maybe even in, a day trading option trade or something like that. If you make that big investment, it's very risky, and it could be very stressful, but you could also, see the biggest reward from that. So,
all right, so I do want to throw a couple things at you before we wrap up. Number one, if you have $1 million, so in the pure financial sense, $1 million, like how are you using that, spending it, saving it? What's it change, if anything, for you?
I would go to this guy named Wakefield and say, I have a ton of money,
Right.
I need you to manage it. No. I actually would probably do that. But
thank you.
I
feel great about it.
I would definitely run that by you.
I definitely wouldn't spend it on anything yet. I definitely would just find a way to spend it in a way that grows and does not give me more responsibilities, and that's the direction I would go into.
So I would invest a portion of that. I would say probably somewhere around less than 100,000 into a high yielding savings account, like with at least 4.5% or higher.
Good for you, and 19 high yielding savings accounts in your vocabulary. That's great.
Yeah. I actually just opened one up not too long ago. But I would also invest a lot of that into, I would say probably about half of it actually, into index funds and something that is very low risk, but I know will grow exponentially over time. And if I'm getting this $1 million at my age currently, I would invest. So let's say that I've just spent $600,000 of that on a savings account and then index fund. I'd probably spend the other $4,000 on. I would probably divvy it up. I'd do $200,000 into crypto, and then I'd probably do the other $2,000 into real estate.
200.
200,000. Yeah.
And then just 2,000.
Yeah. 200,000. Yeah.
Would you two spend any of it? Would you consume anything differently?
No more than I'm spending now.
Honestly, I've thought about that, but I don't know. I really don't. I think I would just spend what I'm spending now, like Evan said.
I'll take it back. I'd move out first, and then I'd move out first, and then I would give.
We probably should lay out the bases. You're both living with parents.
Yes. Yep.
And by choice.
Yes.
Hold up.
Yep.
No, I take that back. I would move out, get married, honeymoon. Then I'd go to Wakefield and say, hey, I have some money left over. It's like 20,000.
Well, your honeymoon was on a private island. You don't have much left.
Yeah. Right.
Nice. That's good. I appreciate that. So the last thing we need to do before I let you guys go, and fantastic, like honestly, probably could spend 5 hours and still have plenty to talk about. So perhaps we can get you back on here someday. Of course, yeah. But as a thank you, I want you guys to spin here this wheel of gift cards together. We've laid out Chipotle, Amazon, and Smoothie King, and we've got 10, 20, and 30 levels on all of that. So somebody, I think, just needs to hit the space bar. You can do it together at the same time.
Okay.
It's both of you.
Okay, and
Boom.
Oh, try
it didn't go. Wait,
Maybe just
we have to click it.
Here, let me get on full screen again. I'm an amateur at this too. Yeah. Here, click,
Right,
hit the bottom right.
You click it, Corbin.
Boom. Oh, wait, we have to click the
Yes, we did it.
Yay.
And it is a reward of $30.
$10. Let's go. Yay.
$10. It'll be $10 for both of you. So you do get
Awesome.
One chicken bowl with no guac.
Yeah.
No chips or no drink.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll slip you $1 or $2 so you can get the guac.
No, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was. I'm sorry I got your hopes up. What was that $30 to Amazon?
Smoothie King.
Oh,
Smoothie King.
King.
Yeah.
Man, you could have gotten 3.
Right.
Oh, that's fun. Thank you guys very much. I hope it was enlightening to yourselves to even like speak out some of these things that I know you think a lot about, but we don't always get a chance to say it out loud. So any last words before we sign off to anyone who will listen?
This guy knows what he's talking about whenever it comes to money, so listen to what he has to say.
Thank you.
Same here.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you both. I'm really excited to know you and see where the journeys go. It'll be fun to especially watch this in 10 years and get your feedback
likewise.
on it. That'll be its own podcast in itself. Like, let's watch you 10 years ago and what you said and how that's changed. So, thank you, anybody. Thank everybody for hanging with us, listening, trying to figure out more of just how our hearts and our minds work. How do we make the most of this life we've been given? To look ahead and not be afraid, but to say, like, bring it on, because we know we're going to make good choices with our resources. So please join us next time on the Greater Futures Podcast.